Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll for the Transportation and Commerce Committee for our meeting on February 16th, 2022?
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaquero.
Present.
Alderwoman Middlebrook. Alderman Narayan. Thank you, Alderwoman. Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Evans. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Present.
Chairman Cohn.
Present.
5 present, you have quorum.
Thank you. Yeah, as noted, Alderman Boyd indicated that he's not feeling well this morning, so can you please excuse Alderman Boyd?
So noted.
Okay, so we'll take up the board bills before us this morning. I believe our first item, or I'm sorry, we need to approve the minutes for this meeting, or for the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion. We approve the minutes of the December 2nd meeting.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second that we approve the meeting minutes from our previous meeting. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaquero.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans. Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Aye.
Chairman Cohn.
Aye.
5 aye votes.
Thank you. With that, we approve the minutes from our December 2nd, 2021 meeting. The first item that's on our agenda for this morning is Board Bill number 147, introduced by Alderwoman Sarah Martin. I know she's on the line, so we'll go ahead and take up Board Bill number 147.
Good morning, everyone. There's a train honking behind me as soon as you brought up this board bill. Good morning. Like Alderman Cohn just said, I have Board Bill 147 hopefully in front of you. It is basically just renewing a lease agreement with a transportation company for mooring along the river. And I believe in the last year or so, the Port Authority has looked at the current leases and longstanding leases that the city has, and they are renewing. Sorry, this train is really annoying. It's very apropos for the Transportation Committee, but they started looking at these leases and reviewing them, and found that some of them were under market rate. So this is nice that we're renewing these at a higher rate for more revenue for the city. I believe that Mr. Morrow here from the City Councilor's office is here to talk a little bit more and answer any questions if I cannot. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on the line to discuss? Mr. Morrow, I thought I also saw that Roland Comfort was on the line as well. I'm not sure if he's planning to speak today.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. Myself, Tom Ray, and Roland Comfort are all here. I'll be available to answer questions, and they can pitch in if there's something that comes up that I'm not able to respond to.
Great. Mr. Ray, Mr. Comfort, do either of you have anything additional to add to Alderwoman Martin's statement?
I do not have anything at this time, Mr. Chairman.
And I should have said it's a lease with ACBL Transportation. And most of the bill most of the language is the actual lease, if there are any questions.
Great. Okay, we'll go ahead and go through questions from the committee. Alderman Vaquero.
I have no questions, but I thought I would just put a steamboat in the background for kind of go with the train. No questions.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
I have no questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. My question, I think, is more for the chairman. One of our meetings in the past, we had our Alderwoman Heather Navarro, who's already deeply missed, brought up questions about environmental regulations or anything that needed to be looked at in the lease, and I was just hoping for an update on that.
I recall that conversation, but can you maybe be a little bit more specific for the folks that from SLDC that may need to answer the question?
Sure. When we were, and perhaps it can't even be answered in this meeting, but during that meeting, Alderwoman Navarro had brought up the need to perhaps look at the environmental sides of these leases and whether or not there needed to be some consideration put into each lease regarding the potential cause for concern around environmental issues with these various companies. I don't even know if this company would be involved in that, but of course it's, you know, it's not here in the lease that may or may not be something that we should be concerned about with this company. So I don't even know that question can be answered now. Alderwoman Martin, I'm happy to, if it's okay with the chairman, for you to yield the questions and all that, but if you know.
So I believe actually Mr. Ray was on that call with Alderwoman Navarro as well. So, and he is the attorney that represents the Port Authority. So I think he'd probably be the better one to answer that question.
Yeah, let me take a general shot at it. We, back in, well, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short. We started including environmental things in the standard provisions back in the 1980s with these leases. We are now in the process of going through and renegotiating at breakpoints where there's mutual options. Just to back up, the charter allows us to go 25 years with a port lease. And originally the leases were for 25 years straight. Then in the 80s, we introduced the concept of 10 years with 3 5-year mutual options. There was no bidding on any or proposals on any of these leases at that time. Then there was a proposal made by Alderman Shrewsbury and an ordinance that we would go through a bid process. That was done. We started doing that. That was reversed under the Slay administration and went back to if you were not in default, you got the lease again. There was no negotiation on the rates. You guys have passed. We have you have passed an ordinance that allows us to negotiate at the intervals of 10, 5, 5, and 5. So we begin 6 months prior to those mutual options beginning. And that's how we got here today. That's it. The environmental that I think you're talking about arose in the lease with Terminal Railroad. And there were additional things inserted mutually at the request of the mayor's office. But we have that in mind, Alderwoman, with respect to this type of thing, but ACBL is not that type of company. There is a hazard. If they engage in any kind of hazardous activity, they have to have hazardous waste insurance. That's basically where we are now. But we have never really updated, other than terminal where it's relevant, the hazardous waste things that we inserted in the 80s.
Thank you so much. That's helpful. I have a lot to learn about all the different types of companies that are working here. So I appreciate the differences, and thank you very much for that answer. Thank you, Chairman Cohn. That's all I have.
Of course. And just to follow up to that question, Mr. Ray or Mr. Comfort, can you just explain a little bit more about what ACBL is going to be doing there, and where the location is that, within the Port Authority boundaries that, we're discussing this morning, and, its proximity to other businesses and residents and whatnot? Obviously, it's in the 11th Ward. Otherwise, Alderwoman Martin wouldn't be sharing this with us this morning.
The permitted use for this is an intermodal bulk transfer facility, but it's now mostly parking and scrub brush. ACBL has had many ideas down there. I think Roland he's probably been down there. I'll let him speak to what's actually more than that. He's mute, he can't unmute. Mr. Chairman, can you unmute Roland? There he is.
Yeah, he looks like he's unmuted on my
All right.
screen.
James, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the particular property is located in a somewhat industrial area. Like Mr. Ray mentioned, right now, the land that abuts the river is just scrub brush, mostly used for parking. The mooring is primarily to tie up line haul barges, and there's a crew change barge that operates there as well. So it's not a particular, it's not like it's a large industrial site or anything like that.
Okay. Alderwoman Evans, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments, or discussion from the members of the committee that I may have missed or anything new? I don't see any hands going up. I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill number 147.
I'll make a motion. We pass Board Bill 147 out the due pass recommendation.
Second.
Second.
Previous rule.
Object to previous roll. Alderwoman Evans, I don't believe was present during the last roll.
Right, okay, yeah. No.
Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook,
Aye.
Alderman Ryan,
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans,
Aye.
Alderwoman Schweitzer,
Aye.
Chairman Cohn.
Aye.
6 aye votes.
Great. With that, we pass Board Bill 147 out with a due pass recommendation. Alderwoman Martin, thank you for your time this morning, as well as Mr. Comfort, Mr. Ray. Appreciate, and Mr. Morrow, thank you for your time this morning as well. The next
Thank you.
several items on the agenda pertain to the airport. So we'll go ahead and take up, I believe it's Board Bill number 172 is the next item on the agenda. I know I saw Rhonda on earlier.
Morning, Chairman Cohn. Yeah, Antonio Strong's going to present this, and obviously I'll be available for questions as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Strong, you have the floor.
Okay, good morning, Transportation and Commerce Committee. So I would present Board Bill 172. This board bill will amend Ordinance 71288, which was the Air Service Incentive Program that was approved in December 2020, which increases the program by $1 million and extends the program to fiscal year 2024. So air service incentive programs are a common practice in the aviation industry to help drive or motivate airlines to add new routes to airports or begin new service to airports. So for example, Spirit Airlines took advantage of the program in 2020 and started flying out of Lambert, where they have never flown out before. And that we are really seeing a lot of success with Spirit Airlines here at the airport. And as you guys may have heard the big news, we have a new international flight from Lufthansa that will begin service in 2022. And that could not have been achieved without a program like this. So this program is competitive with other medium hub airports throughout the country and is funded through the Airport Development Fund, which I will actually speak about that a little bit more in another board bill when it comes to funding this. But at this time, I respectfully request your approval of this board bill.
Thank you, Antonio. We'll go ahead and take questions from the committee. We'll start with Alderman Vaccaro.
I have no questions.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Evans.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thank you so much. Just really excited about more flights coming to the airport. It's such a great thing for our city. Thank you all for your work. No questions. I'll definitely be supporting.
Wonderful. I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill number 172.
So moved.
Second.
Previous roll.
Great. It's been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd, seconded by the Alderwoman from, I believe it was the 4th. And there's been a call for previous roll. Any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number 172 passes out with a due pass recommendation. Next up is Board Bill number 173. Antonio, are you taking this one as well?
Yes, sir. So thanks again. I'll present Board Bill 173. So this is an annual request. Per our bond indentures and the airport use of lease agreement with the airlines, we are required to perform this annual $13.7 million transfer from the Airport Debt Service Stabilization Fund to the Airport Revenue Fund. It helps us maintain a healthy debt service coverage ratio of 1.25 or better, and it helps mitigate our rates. And prior to requesting your approval, this request was also shared with the comptroller and approved in December, and it was also approved at the Airport Commission. The current balance in the Debt Service Stabilization Fund is $26.9 million. And at this time, we respectfully request your approval to transfer the funds. And the funds are also transferred back in at the end of the year.
Thank you, Antonio. I'm just going to request, and my apologies for not doing this in advance of the meeting, but I'm not sure if we've had the opportunity to kind of talk through the different funds at the airport with the new committee members. Can you maybe provide just a small overview of the different funds that we have, at least the larger ones like the development fund and debt fund and whatnot, just so that that they're aware of that? And how those
so
function.
The airport development. Okay, yeah. So the Airport Development Fund, that is a fund that is used to purchase or construct capital assets and improvements for the airport. That fund is funded right now, usually on an annual basis from the airlines. A portion of our non-aeronautical revenue is placed into that fund on an annual basis. So that fund helps us with purchasing capital assets or other new construction or other maintenance projects around the airport. But we also have several other funds. So the one that we're talking about right now is the Debt Service Stabilization Fund. So that fund was established many years ago to provide comfort to our bondholders that we have enough funds to cover any debt payment deficiencies or operational emergencies. And that's the only way that funds can be taken out of that fund, is for either debt service deficiencies or operational emergencies. We've had a few operational emergencies, major operational emergencies, when you may recall we had a what we call a culvert collapse, where a portion of the runway absolutely collapsed. And we had to fund that out of our debt service stabilization fund. It was about an $8 million project. And so we had to fund that out of our debt service stabilization fund to cover that operational emergency. But we also have just other funds like our just general revenue fund, O&M fund. All of these funds are what we call a waterfall. So the first bucket of funds that you would receive was any general revenue, and then that would pay for our operation and maintenance items throughout the year or every month. And then as those funds trickle down, those funds will eventually go into our debt service stabilization fund, or will go into our airport development fund throughout the year, or I guess actually every month as we receive revenues.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that, as I'm sure other members of the committee do as well, especially those that are newer to the committee. We'll go ahead and take questions on Board Bill number 173. Alderman Vaquero.
I have no questions.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
I have no questions.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Evans.
I have one question, and I'm new at this, and I just wanted to know, what is a waterfall fund?
Oh.
So it's not really a waterfall fund. So and I I wish I had this at my fingertips, but I don't. If you look at the way the funds are funded, we like to call it a waterfall because it's kind of a step down process. So your first bucket is you receive your general revenues that come in every single month. And then you use those revenues to go into paying for next operation and maintenance. And then the next bucket, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but the next bucket is it's like I said, it's several funds. And so it just keeps waterfalling down until it trickles into like the last fund, which I do believe is our airport development fund. What might be helpful for the transportation and committee members, several years ago, I kind of gave a really broad overview of the airport. And if you guys want to, call a special meeting, I could give you that broad overview again. And in that overview, it will actually show you a graphical depiction of what that waterfall looks like.
Yeah, Alderwoman Evans, it's just a term that we use because if you look at the depiction of it, there's 9 buckets. And as the revenue comes in, they have to be paid in accordance into each of those buckets. And then at the end, if there's revenue left, that can go into our airport development fund, which is the fund that we talked about being able to use for the air service development and other things.
Okay.
So the waterfall is just the term that we
Trickle down.
deem because it looks like a waterfall.
Okay. So I like a trickle down
Trickle
effect or
down.
something.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. Yes.
Okay. That's it.
I'll take you up on that, Antonio, as well. I've added that to topic of discussion for later in the meeting. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee? I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'll entertain a motion on board bill number 173.
So moved.
Second.
In previous
Okay.
role.
It's been moved by the alderman from the 23rd ward, seconded by the alderwoman from the 4th ward, that we move and pass board bill number 173 out with a due pass recommendation. There's been a call for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, board bill number 173 passes out with a due pass recommendation. Next on the agenda is item, excuse me, item number 3, which is, item number 4, board bill number 174. Antonio, are you handling that one as well?
Yes, sir. So I will present board bill 174. This is directly related to the incentive program that was discussed in board bill 172. This request is for your approval of the funding of the incentive program, which would take place with an initial appropriation of $1 million from the Airport Development Fund. This draft ordinance is also authorizes supplemental transfer from the incentive period to fund the program periodically up to an amount not to exceed of $2.4 million. Our ADF balance as we speak right now is about 11.6 million. And we have appropriated about 70 million for capital projects in the past. But at this time, I respectfully request your approval to fund the Air Service Incentive Program of initial appropriation of $1 million from our Airport Development Fund.
Antonio, can you just run by the last, my phone was breaking up or my internet, so I didn't quite catch the balance and subsequent numbers that you mentioned. And I'm not sure if it was just me or other members as well. Do you mind repeating that?
Sure. So the unappropriated balance of our Airport Development Fund currently is about 11.6 million. We have appropriated over time from our Airport Development Fund for capital projects of about 70 million right now. And so we're requesting only $1 million from that Airport Development Fund to help fund the Air Service Incentive Program that I discussed in Board Bill 172.
Great, thank you. I'll go ahead and take questions from the committee. Alderman Vaquero.
No questions.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
No questions.
Alderman Narayan.
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Evans.
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Oh gosh, I think I might have missed you on the last bill. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Alderwoman
I asked
Schweitzer.
if anyone else had any questions, and I didn't, so I felt included. Thank you very much. My only question is, should we expect any more expansion news, or is there anything in the works that you want to hint at towards this committee?
So there's a couple of things going on. We did just put out a press release while we're on this call. Spirit has announced they're adding Myrtle Beach. So the news with Spirit has been very good. Now, you probably saw recently that Spirit and Frontier are merging. Spirit and Frontier both serve St. Louis. With them combined, we're their 23rd largest market with the combined airline. We think that bodes well for us. While we don't have any firm commitment from them, I have had conversations with both of them, and the expectation is that if that merger gets approved, they would see some additional growth here because of the strength of both of them. You know, they both are ultra low cost carriers, so they offer a wide range of opportunity for a lot of people who normally haven't traveled due to high costs. So they bring a lot of new people to the table. So we are hopeful that as that merger happens, we would actually see expanded service. And as I said, this morning, we just put out a press release. They're adding Myrtle Beach. So that'll be the 10th market that Spirit's serving, which is great. On the, the front, as the airlines are still kind of coming out of COVID, this year is still going to be a little bit up and down, I think, with any expansion of most carriers domestically, because those that serve the business clientele, we haven't seen the business clientele totally return. So what you've seen is that leisure market return at even a greater pace than pre-pandemic. So airlines like Spirit and Frontier, that bodes well for them because that's 99% of their market's leisure based. If you look at the legacy carriers, they rely heavily on business traffic, and the business traffic, even though it's coming back, it's not to pre-pandemic levels. So, I think Southwest this summer should get back to what their pre-pandemic schedule was. It's still a little bit down for February, March, and April, but we think their June schedule, they'll be back to actually a couple more flights a day than what the pre-pandemic is. So I think this year is going to be, kind of a tell year. If certainly the pandemic does cease and the business traffic comes back, then I think we're set very well for growth, both from a business market as well as a leisure market.
Thank you so much.
I'm just curious, Rhonda, with that announcement, not of the additional line, obviously, but with the merger of the two airlines, are there any redundant routes between the two of them in and out of St. Louis?
There are 3 redundant routes. So Orlando, Las Vegas, and Cancun. We don't believe that they would both serve Cancun because we also have Southwest serving Cancun, American serves Cancun, Frontier and Spirit. What we do believe, and I've had some discussions with Spirit, is they'll probably substitute the Cancun for another Caribbean route, which would be great because it could give us another destination to the Caribbean. As far as Orlando and Vegas, I think there's enough business with the ultra low cost market that they both serve at 1 flight a day. So that's 2 flights a day. We think that both of those would continue to serve with both airlines. Great.
Thank you. I've flown to both Orlando and Vegas on both of those airlines, so I was kind of wondering about that. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions as it pertains to Board Bill number 174? I'm not seeing any hands up. I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill number 174.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
In previous
Okay.
role.
It's been moved by the Alderman of the 23rd Ward and seconded by the Alderman from the 24th Ward that we pass out Board Bill 174 with a due pass recommendation. There's been a call for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection to previous roll, Board Bill number 174 passes out with a due pass recommendation. Next on the agenda is Board Bill number 186. I believe this is actually being presented by Latanya in the Comptroller's office. Is she on the line?
I saw her name pop up. There she is.
Latanya, are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Are you presenting on this board bill this morning, or is someone else?
We have Rebecca Perry Glickstein and David Stenful and Ramon Ortega, but David is the main presenter.
Great, thank you. David, I see that you're still signed in and you appear to be unmuted. Would you like to go ahead with the presentation for board bill number 186?
Sure, thank you. Good morning, Chairman and committee members. If I may, I'll share my screen. We have a brief 2-3 page presentation. Is that okay?
Absolutely. David, can you also just share your position in relation to the board bill?
Absolutely, I apologize. My name is David Sinfield. I'm a managing director at Siebert Williams Shank. We serve as co-financial advisor to the airport, and we've been doing so for the past probably about 25 years, working with the airport to execute revenue bond financings for its various capital projects. And with me, I have Ramon Ortega, who's a managing director as well at our firm and serves on the same team, as well as Rebecca Perry Glickstein, who serves as a director of public financial management, who's also the co-financial advisor to the airport, as well as financial advisors to the city on its other credits, including general obligation, lease revenue bonds, so on and so forth.
Great. Do you want to go ahead and, sorry, I'm having a sneezing fit here, so I'm going in and out. If you want to go ahead and share your presentation, we can go ahead and move forward with that.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me know if you can please see the presentation. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. And I should note that while I don't have steamboats or trains near me, there might be an 8-month-old baby in the background joining our meeting. So forgive me if there's any noise or ambient noise.
Wonderful. Mazel tov.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So I'll try to be very judicious with your time. Today we'll be going over just 3 items: a brief overview of the refunding transaction at hand, a just brief discussion of the airport's successful history of executing current refundings. On the next page, we'll talk a little bit about some of the preliminary results we're seeing, as well as a brief discussion of the market. And then finally, we'll talk about the financing schedule and the financing team that is here to serve the city. So the city has an opportunity to currently fund Series 2012 bonds, given their upcoming call date on July 1st. There's about 19 million of Series 2012 AMT bonds that are currently outstanding and available for refunding. And the refunding will be used to reduce debt service costs of the airport and thereby generate savings for the airport. The bonds will be general airport revenue bonds, which are secured by revenues of the airport pursuant to an indenture of trust that's been supplemented basically for every time we do a new refunding or new issuance. And proceeds will be used to 1, refund the Series 2012 bonds, 2, fund any required reserve fund if necessary, and then 3, pay expenses associated with the issuance of the bonds. They'll be sold via a negotiated process in the municipal bond market, and the city executed a RFP process to competitively select a team of underwriters to serve the city. The airport also has a really strong history of executing these sorts of refunding transactions. As you can see on this page, they've refunded Series 2012, 13, 15, or in 12, 13, 15, 17, and 19. They've executed refundings that totaled 71.3 million of savings, or 16.6% of refunded par, which is just a really, really strong amount and really goes to speak to the city's management of its revenue bond portfolio with respect to the airport. Turning to the next page, there's a lot going on this page, but we wanted to just briefly give you sort of some preliminary results as to what we're seeing right now. Obviously, we're all hearing about inflation and some potential interest rate increases from the Federal Reserve that are impacting the municipal bond market. But currently, assuming that rates are unchanged by the time that we reach pricing, which would be expected sometime in mid-May, we're currently seeing that the city can refund 18.8 million of Series 2012 bonds to produce approximately 2.4 million of net present value savings, which translates to about 12.5% of refunded par. On an annual basis, that would generate savings, cash flow savings between year 2023 and 2032 of about just under $400,000, as you can see in the bottom right corner of this page. We also decided to show an interest rate sensitivity, given that rates have been increasing. In fact, since the start of the year, depending on the maturity that you select in the municipal bond market, interest rates are up about 60 to 70 basis points. And there's an expectation that rates could go higher. So we decided to show a 50 basis point increase in what that impact would have on potential savings. And as you can see on the graph in the bottom left, savings would decline by about from 2.35 million to about 1.8 million, which is still a significant amount and represent about 10% of refunded par. So again, if interest rates went up about 50 basis points by around midday when we're expecting to price, then savings would decline somewhat, but still be high at about 1.8 million, or about 10% of refunded par. And I should also note that on a historical basis, prior to this current round of rate increases, we've had about 30 to 40 years of rate declines, and we're at basically our historical lows. So even though rates have started to increase since the start of the year, on a long-term historical basis, we're still at almost the absolute historical low in terms of where we are in the interest rate market. Finally, if we turn to the last page, we just wanted to briefly touch on the proposed schedule as well as the current financing team. The city is looking to release its preliminary official statement, which is its primary offering document, to the municipal bond market on Friday, May 6th. Pricing for the bonds on the day that will set the actual interest rates for the refunding will be Tuesday, May 17th. To the extent that we can move that day up sooner, there's some effort to try to do so to get ahead of some of the interest rate increases. And then closing for the bonds is expected on June 1st. Subsequent to that, we'll call the outstanding 2012 bonds on their call date, which is Friday, July 1st. And then below that, just want to touch on, again, the financing team that's here to serve the city. Many of the financing team members have served the city in various capacities before, including on airport revenue bond transactions. And it includes a mix of both local firms, women-led, minority-owned firms, as well as larger firms as well. So I should pause there, and I suppose that we can take any questions from the committee members. Thank you for your time. And I'll stop sharing my screen.
That was going to be my next ask. Thanks, David. Appreciate your time. We'll go ahead and entertain questions from the committee on Board Bill number 186. Alderman Vaquero.
Yes, and I don't know why it switched my background. I have no idea, but anyway, I do have a few questions. What is the cost going to be for the refund? The reissuing of these bonds, what's the cost?
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Alderman. We're currently estimating approximately a cost of issuance, and combined with an underwriter's discount, of under about $500,000 for the entire transaction. And that's combined of cost for securing a rating for the bonds, cost for various counsel, including bond counsel, disclosure counsel, and underwriters counsel, cost for the underwriters, the financial advisors, the trustee, feasibility consultant, and the verification agent.
Who is, I'm sorry, Rhonda, were you?
I was just going to say, David, just for clarification, when we look at that savings, that is inclusive, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, but that savings is inclusive of the cost of issuance as well. So the projected savings to the airport that you saw on the previous slide does include in that the cost of issuance.
That is correct.
So even figuring that, you're still hoping to save about $1.8 million on the low side.
Assuming if rates go up by approximately 50 basis points, then it'd be about 1.8 million. And if rates are unchanged, then it'd be closer to around 2.35 million.
Right. And I was just, so, and who is it a local company that's issuing these, or where is these going to be issued? Who's the company issuing them? And are they located here in St. Louis?
That's a great question. And yes, the two underwriting co-senior firms, one is called Stern Brothers, that's based locally in St. Louis. And although it's called Stern Brothers, it's actually a woman-led firm. And then there's another firm called Loop Capital Markets that has offices in the city of St. Louis. That is a minority-owned firm. Those are the two lead underwriters for this transaction.
Okay, and they have offices here. Where's their main office located?
I can pull up their exact location. Stern Brothers is actually headquartered in the city of St. Louis,
Right.
and Loop has an office in the city of St. Louis, but I don't have their exact address. But if you give me a moment, I can pull that up.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, because certainly, we want to hit on the minority and women-owned participation. I'm glad we're doing that. But I'm also curious if this is a local company or just, it's easy for somebody to have an office here in St. Louis, but where are they actually, where's the money going?
David, this is LaTanya, and I just wanted to say to Alderman Vaccaro, Stern Brothers is located in St. Louis County. They have a Clayton office.
Okay, and the other company?
The other company has a St. Louis office, which is Loop Capital, and they are an MBE, and Stern Brothers is actually a WBE.
Right, he had said that, but the question is, where is the second one, that Loop? Where are they
headquartered?
Right.
Chicago, Illinois is the best of my knowledge, but I can confirm that information for you.
Okay.
That is accurate.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move on, but I wouldn't mind an answer. I know that at 10 o'clock I go to streets, but so I'll move on. But I would like to know that. I plan to vote for this either way for the savings, but I do think it's important that we're using companies located maybe even in our state, which seems like sometimes it's the last place we seem to go. And so anyway, I will defer back to the committee, but wouldn't mind an answer.
Yeah. Alderman Vaccaro, if I may, just for clarification on the issuance, as they indicated, both companies are based here in the St. Louis region. I will tell you that Stern Brothers, I've been here now starting 13 years. Stern Brothers has been involved in most every bond refunding that we've had at the airport because they are local based. They are very familiar with the airport. And so when we retain through the comptroller's office, both the firms that David and the firms that Rebecca work for. So those are on contract with us as part of an RFP process. So, they, and Unison, obviously, which is also our financial consultant for the airport. So all of those firms are on contracts with us. And as we look to do these things, we work with them very closely on an analysis. Does it make sense? Should we do it? But then when they go out to pick the teams, to partner with them during this, that's where you see the local participation come in.
I understand, but I'm asking the second company, they're not headquartered out of St. Louis or even Missouri. The question is, where are they headquartered out of? That was the question. And someone was going to get me the answer eventually.
And I think the answer is Chicago, Illinois, but we can confirm.
Yes,
Yeah, Rebecca's shaking her head.
I can
Yes,
confirm that
absolutely.
the first company, Stern Brothers, their headquarters is 8000 Maryland Avenue in St. Louis, Missouri. The second company, Loop Capital Markets, is headquartered in the city of Chicago.
Right. Okay. And it was more curious, and it just seems to me like we could do more locally, but $1 million is $1 million, but anyway, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to.
Alderwoman Middlebrook, do you have any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Alderman Narayan,
No questions. Thank you.
Alderwoman Evans,
No questions, thank you.
Alderwoman Schweitzer.
No questions. Thanks for that presentation.
Yeah, just a quick question from me, David. Alderman Vaccaro was asking about the rates and the savings as it pertains to them. I mean, the Fed has already indicated that they are going to be raising rates this year, possibly 2 or 3 times this year, was the last time, I had an update about it. Are you all anticipating that? And then, what happens if the Fed ends up raising rates 3 times and we end up at a, 1% Fed rate?
Thank you for that question, Chairman. It's a great question. And I'm gonna hesitate a little bit because you're asking me to pull out my crystal ball, and I've been wrong on interest rates so many times. But if I may try to share what our economists have been talking about, it as well as the most recent survey of leading Bloomberg economists has stated, is that this year they're expecting the Fed to raise rates 7 times this year in calendar year 2022. Calendar year 2023, they're expecting 4 more rate increases. There are only 7 Fed meetings this year, so basically they're expecting rate increases at every meeting this year. And the pace of the rate increases is expected to pick up. As you noted, not too long ago, they were expecting a 25 basis point increase at the March meeting, which is the first upcoming meeting. Now we've heard as high as 50 and as high as 100 basis points by the June meeting. So there's a strong chance that there will continue to be rate increases. The question now is, how much of that is already baked into the rates that we're seeing today? Since the start of the year, without the Fed increasing rates at all, rates are up 60 to 70 basis points. So there's an argument to be had that some portion of the expected rate increases that we're going to see are already baked into the rates that you're seeing today in both the taxable market and the municipal market. However, until we go to market, until we go to price the bonds in May, or hopefully sooner, I'll be honest with you, your guess is as good as mine as to whether or not, rates can go further or if they'll go lower. And Ramon and I were actually having this debate yesterday, not to get too wonky, but we were having this debate yesterday about where rates are going to go. On the one hand, you have inflation, which is obviously a really strong signaling factor as to why rates should increase. But on the other hand, you have, political economic events like what's happening in Ukraine and Russia right now that can drive investors to safety and thereby produce a lower rate environment. So you have a lot of competing factors. There could be another variant of COVID, for example, that is, found out of a release that's more virulent than Omicron or Delta, that creates another flight to safety. So there's a number of factors that we're closely watching that could impact how the rate market could change. But at this time, I think our general view is that rates will likely creep higher probably before we price these bonds.
So, but the anticipation is that the bonds will be issued by the time, probably after the March Fed meeting, but before the next meeting, so that,
that's exactly,
am I hearing
correct.
that correctly? Okay. All right.
It'll probably be sandwiched in between the two, and our hope is to try to move that date a little closer to the first one and farther from the second one.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Okay. Thank you. I don't have, oh, I'm sorry.
Chairman Cohn, I was just gonna, if I may, just one additional comment. I will tell you, I think in the 13 years I've been here, this is going to be the 7th bond refunding that we've done. And if we look at this in aggregate, I think over those refundings, we've netted probably close to $400 to $500 million in savings. So it's been a significant program for us, because when we initially took out a lot of this debt, we were at a much lower rating in the agency, so our interest rates were higher. So the ability to get our ratings up and the ability to work with all of our financial advisors and the comptroller's office on this has made huge savings to the airport. So while this one may not be necessarily the largest saving of those that we've seen, because it is a smaller refunding as well, I think that continued momentum of showing that we are continually, raising our rates, we are continually actively engaged in this and bringing our costs down is something that's also critically important to obviously the airlines, because they benefit from this. They benefit from us having less costs that we're paying out. So they watch it very closely as well. So it's got multiple reasons for doing it. And I just wanted to share that with some of the committee members who may not be familiar with our operation.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll take any other questions from the committee if there are any. I don't see any hands up. I'll entertain a motion on Board Bill number 186.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Previous roll.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd Ward that we move or pass Board Bill at 186 out with a due pass recommendation. It was seconded by the Alderman from the 24th Ward. There's been a motion of previous roll by the Alderwoman from the 13th Ward. Is there any objection to previous roll? Hearing no objection, Board Bill number 186 passes out with a due pass recommendation. Thank you everyone for your time this morning as we went through the items on our agenda. Next item on the agenda is resolutions. I don't have any currently before the committee that we're hearing today. And then the next item on the agenda is discussion. I do have 2 points of discussion, one of which is the airport layout plan. The director and I have had discussions about the folks at the airport presenting their current updates as it pertains to potential changes at the airport. And so wanted to get everyone's thoughts in terms of whether or not that's something that you want to see. I've already benefited from the presentation at the Airport Commission, but I personally think that it would be a benefit to members of the committee. As I'm sure we progress through this process, we'll likely be getting some of those questions as well. So, I do think it would be a benefit, but just wanted to gauge from you all, since it's your time as well, if you're amenable to that.
The one comment I will make is I think the presentation that we gave to the Airport Commission, and that is on our Fly STL webpage, a full presentation, is about 62 slides. I have condensed that for some other groups down to about 15. I know I made a presentation to the Metro mayors a couple of weeks ago. So, we can do the full presentation, or we can reduce that down to about 15 slides, which I can do in maybe 15 or 20 minutes and then take Q&A. If we were to show the full 62 slides, it takes about an hour just to get through the presentation. So we can do that in either format that you desire.
You're muted.
Shane, you're muted.
Shane,
Alderman
you're
Cohen,
muted.
you're muted.
I am sorry about that. So it at least appears from the nonverbal communication of which I was just a part of, there were some head shaking. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the members of the committee would like to see the presentation. Rhonda, I'll just check in with folks offline to see, which version of the presentation they would like to see. But as of now, we have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday, the 24th. That's currently full of items from the Port Authority. So possibly that first week in March would be the next kind of proposed date that I would be looking at, probably that Wednesday or Thursday, the first week of March.
Okay.
So I will circle back with the committee members to figure out a time that works best for everyone. The other item, if we could add it to that particular meeting, would be the overview that Antonio was discussing earlier with respect to the airport funds and our waterfall. Antonio, would you be able to present at a meeting sometime in the beginning of March?
Sure.
Great. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So we'll go ahead and get that scheduled, and I will make the announcement at our full Board of Aldermen meeting and then communicate to you and Rhonda, Antonio and Rhonda. Sorry, Antonio is up on my screen right now. And then the next item on our agenda is announcements, and really my only other announcement would be that we are having a meeting next Thursday, the 24th at 9 a.m. And that is going to be to take some of the Port Authority bills that are being introduced, I believe, this Friday, that need to pass out before the end of our session. So with that, are there any other announcements or discussion items from members of the committee?
Chairman Cohn, I think we will also have a board bill introduced this Friday on the process of changing concessions to an RFP or SFB. So we would ask that we could try to get that on that committee as well next week on the committee meeting. I do believe it's going to be presented this Friday.
Okay. Thank you for that. I will make note of that.
Can tell you if it's
Alderman
not-
Cohn,
I was gonna say, if it's not this Friday, yesterday was the deadline at noon to present any bills for this session. So if it wasn't presented yesterday by noon, it won't be in this session.
Couldn't we move though to suspend the rules and introduce it if needed?
I would think you might be able to, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that the
That's not
deadline,
dead.
the deadline was yesterday at noon, and it's the last, was put out the last meeting to introduce new bills because of the time in the session.
Okay, so I do want to be mindful that we do have a streets committee meeting coming up in 2 minutes. I will get with the clerk about the introduction of a board bill since I'll likely be the sponsor of it. But thank you all for your feedback. I see one hand up, Latanya. Excuse
Alderman
me.
Cohn, and to the committee, I would just like to say thank you for your time in working with the comptroller's office and getting this board bill on the agenda as quickly as you did. I just wanted to say thank you for your support.
You are welcome. It's been such a pleasure working with you and getting this done. And you are very tenacious at your job. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, without any other discussion or announcements, I move that we adjourn the Transportation and Commerce Committee meeting for today.
I second that.
Second.
Great. Thank you all for your time. See you next week.